I'm so glad when people take me up on my offer to give me suggestions for their favorite teams. And as promised, I'm going to be creating the Washington Capitals today for Timothy Music, who is next in line, and therefore so are the Washington Capitals. So let's get started. As with all the hockey players, you're going to need a standard rainbow loom in the aligned configuration where all the pins are even with each other. The bands we're going to be using are black, clear, white, skin tone, red, and 4 silver bands for the skates. And for that we are going to need our red, white, and black bands. We're going to be using single bands for this, and we're going to put a single white band 4 times going down our right side pegs. And on top of these we want to put 2 red bands, also going 4 times down our right side peg. Next we want to take 3 black bands for the glove and continue, and we're going to cap this with a single black band wrapped 3 times around the peg. We're going to do the same thing for the other arm. 4 single white bands going down the left side of our loom. Followed by 2 red bands on top of our white bands. Also going down 4 times. And again, we want to take 3 black bands and place them for the glove. And we can cap this with a single black band wrapped 3 times around our peg. And now to loop this, it's going to be a little bit different. We are going to reach into our cap band and loop our 3 black bands for the glove, and then we want to reach in and loop a single red band, and we're going to loop 1 single red band all the way up, and then we are going to take our hook and grab the 2 bands of the bands we just looped and move them to the outside of our loom. Next we want to reach in and grab the next single red band and loop it forward, and again we're going to go all the way to the top. And then we want to take those 2 red bands and move them to the inside of our loom. And it's going to be a little bit tricky, so you just want to make sure that you're grabbing the proper bands. Sorry, I just want to make sure I have the right ones. So I'm going to take my hook and find the bands that I need, and there's 1. And like I said, it will be a little tricky, so just try to be careful and that you're grabbing the right bands. And lastly, we want to reach in and grab our single white band and loop it up the center. There we go. So we want to do the same thing on the other side, reaching inside our cap band, grabbing all 3 bands of our glove, and then we're going to want to grab our top red band only and loop it forward. So we're just grabbing one of our 2 red bands and looping it to the top. And as before, we want to move the 2 sides of the band that we just looped and move it to the right side. And next we can grab our next red band and loop it forward. And remember, we still want to be forming our teardrop shape as we go. And now we can grab those 2 red bands that we've just looped, and we're going to move just those ones to the outside of our pegs. There we go. And now we can finish off by looping our single white bands forward to the peg above. There we go. And that's our arms. And I'm going to remove these from my loom and place them on a holding hook. And we can set these aside. And for his legs, we're going to be needing the same bands, red, black, white, along with our silver. And we're going to start by placing 2 black bands 2 times, going down the right side, followed by 2 red bands 2 times, followed by 2 silver bands to represent the skates. And this we're going to cap with a single black band wrapped 3 times around our peg. We're going to want to do the same thing for the other leg. 2 black bands going 2 times down our pin, followed by 2 red bands 2 times, followed by 2 silver bands for the skates. And again, we'll cap this peg with a single black band wrapped 3 times around the peg. And this time it's just straightforward looping, except we are going to loop the silver and 1 set of the red bands, and then we want to take a single white band and wrap it around our hook 4 times, and when we reach in and grab our second set of red bands, we want to slide our white bands down onto the red, and we're going to loop that forward, and we can continue and finish off this pin. We're going to do the same thing for the other side, reaching inside our cap band, grabbing both silver bands of our skate and 1 of the red bands, a single white band, wrap it 4 times around our hook, grab the second set of our red bands, and slide our white bands down onto the red and loop it forward. And we can finish off this side, and then we can remove this from our loom as well and place it on a holding hook. And before we set the legs aside, what we want to do is take a hold of 2 of the white bands, and we are going to give them a little stretch and pull them over to the other side of the skate, so that we have 2 white bands on one side and 2 white bands on the other. And we want to do the same thing for the other foot. We're just going to grab 2 white bands, 2, stretch them a little bit, and tuck our skate through so that we have 2 white bands on either side of our leg. And we'll fiddle with those a little bit later. We'll set those aside. And that's it for the attachments. So now we're ready to band our loom. And we're going to start with our black bands. And everything here will be doubled. So we want to take 2 black bands and go down the center 2 times. And then we want to take 2 black bands and go from the second peg on the left to the first peg in the center, and the second peg on the right to the first peg in the center. Next, we want to go down the left side 1 time with 2 black bands, and also down the right side 1 time with 2 black bands. We're going to move on to our clear bands to represent the visor, and we're going to place 2 clear bands from the 3rd to the 4th peg on the left, the 3rd to the 4th peg in the center, and the 3rd to the 4th peg on the right. And now we can move on to our skin tone bands for their chin. And we're going to take 2 skin tone bands and continue down the center. We also want to take 3 white bands to represent the neck protector, and we're also going to put those down the center. And again, we will take 2 skin tone bands and place them from the 5th peg in the center to the 4th peg on the left, and the 5th peg in the center to the 4th peg on the right. And now we can move down to the jersey. And we're going to be needing our black and red bands for this, if I don't lose them all. And again, everything's going to be double banded. So we're going to take 2 black bands and continue down the center. Next, we want to take 2 red bands and go down the center 4 times with 2 red bands each time. We're going to move over to the left side, and we're going to go from the 6th peg in the center to the 7th peg on the left and put 2 red bands, and from the 6th peg in the center to the 7th peg on the right with 2 red bands. And for the left side of his jersey, we're going to be using a red and a black band together, and we want to go down 4 times, each time with a black band and a red band. And we want to put the red band first, and then the black on top. And we're going to do the same thing on the right side. A red band, followed by a black band on top, 4 times going down the right side. we go. And we're going to move on to his hockey pants. And I actually said it right that time. They're not shorts, apparently. And we're going to go 1 time, continuing down the center, and 2 times going down the left side, and 2 times going down the right. And to finish off the shorts, we want to take 2 black bands from the last peg on the left to the second peg from the bottom in the center, and 2 black bands from the last peg on the right to the second peg in the center. And now we're ready for our holding bands. And we are going to take a single black band and go across the second pegs, a single clear band and go across the third pegs, a single skin tone band will go across the fourth pegs, and moving down to the jersey, we're going to take a single red band and go across the 8th pegs, the 9th pegs, the 10th pegs, and a single black band across the 11th pegs, and a single black band across the 12th pegs. And now we're ready for our attachments. We're going to start with the legs, and we're going to put 1 on the last peg down on the left, and 1 on the last peg down on the right. And for our arms, 1 is going to go on the 7th peg down on the left, and the 7th peg on the right. There we go. And now we're ready to loop. And we're going to start at the bottom, and we are going to reach in and grab the top 2 black bands, and they're going to go over to the center, and we'll do the same thing on the right side, grabbing the top 2 bands, and looping those to the center. And now we can loop up the left side, and we're going to again reach inside our attachment, grab the bottom 2 bands and loop forward, and we're going to do that 2 times, and we'll do the same thing on the right side, grabbing our bottom 2 black bands and looping them forward, and we'll do that 2 times. When we get to where we have a black and a red band, we want to reach inside our holding bands and grab the single black band and loop it forward. And we're going to go all the way up to where we've attached our arm, looping just the single black band. And once we've done that, we want to take the 2 bands that we've just looped and pull them to the outside of our peg. And we want to do that all the way down for 3 of the pegs. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side, reaching inside, grabbing just our top black band and looping it forward. And again, we're going to loop up to where we've attached our arm, looping just the single black band. And as always, we want to make sure that we're forming our teardrop raindrop shape as we go. And again, once we've looped our black bands, we want to grab just the 2 black bands that we've just looped and we want to pull those to the outside. And we want to try to leave our holding bands in their position. And we are going to do this for the 3 pegs, except for the ones that are on the top, where we've attached the arms. And now we can reach in, and we're going to loop our single red bands. And this time we can loop all the way up to the neck, making sure when we get to our arm that we're grabbing the bottom 2 red bands and looping them forward. And we'll do the same thing on the right, looping our single red band all the way to where we've attached the arm. And then we want to make sure that we grab 2 red bands to loop over to the neck. Next, we can loop up the center, and we're going to reach inside and grab the bottom 2 bands and loop them forward in our raindrop shape. And again, we want to make sure that we stay inside our holding bands and that we are forming the raindrop as we go. When we get to the neck, we need to remember that we've used 3 white bands here for our neck protector. So we want to make sure that we grab all 3 before we loop to the peg above. And I can release some tension by just wrapping my hook around that center peg. And then we're going to reach in and grab the top 2 skin tone bands and loop over to the right. The next 2 are going to the left. The final 2 are going up the center. And now we can loop up the left side and grab our 2 clear bands and loop them forward, 2 black bands and loop them forward, 2 more black bands and loop them to the top center peg. And we'll do the same thing on the right side, grabbing our 2 clear bands and looping them forward, 2 black bands and 2 black bands to the top center peg. And finally, we want to loop up the center, grabbing our 2 clear bands, 2 black bands, and the final 2 black bands. And now we want to double check that we've looped all of the bands, and you want to pay particular attention to where we've pulled the bands to the outside and done our extensions this way, and make sure that we've looped all of those. And we'll check down the sides of our loom, and everything looks good. So we're going to grab a single black band, reach down inside our top center peg, grab a hold of our loop, pull it up through the center, and form a slip knot. And I've mentioned in several of my previous videos that it's okay if you break your band, because for the slip knot, and I save bands for everything, I've mentioned this before, you don't need to have a full whole band for your slip knot. So what I've done, I've got my loop, and I'm just going to grab both sides and pull both ends of that loop of the broken part. Actually, that broke mid application, so I'm going to start all over with this to show you how I do it from the beginning. You take your broken band, join your 2 ends together, and grab onto them so that you can see your loop. And I'm going to reach down through all of these bands, grab a hold of my loop, and I'm going to pull it up through the center, and then I'm going to grab the sides of my band and pull it up through the loop, making sure that I catch both broken ends, and then I'm just going to give it a gentle tug. I don't want it to break again, and so I'm going to release some of this tension, and now we're ready to remove it from our loom. And I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm just going to remove these bands from the pegs. And when I get to the neck, I want to place my hook down through the peg and roll it around that peg to release those bands. Just it is pretty tight there. There are a lot of bands, and we don't want at this point to have a band break on us. So we're just going to continue removing these. And again, I'm going to place my hook down the center and remove our figure. And he needs a little bit of tweaking. So I'm just going to stretch him out here a little bit. And to adjust his feet so they're more defined, I'm going to place my hook down through the center of the teardrop, and I'm just going to tug my bands to the side. And I can adjust my cap band as well. And I'm just going to roll it around and make sure that my skate is properly aligned. And again, I'm going to place my hook straight down through the center of the teardrop. I want to make sure I've gone through the right sides. And again, I'm just going to give my bands a tug to the side. And that's just to define the feet a little better, to make it look more like they're actual skates that are going to be touching the ice. And I also want to adjust the white bands here on his socks, and I'm just going to separate them so that they're clearly two white stripes. And I'm going to do that for both sides. The left and the right, and also on the back for the left and the right. There we go. And I also want to adjust his arms so that they're pointing down a little bit. And I'm going to place my hook down through the center of the teardrop and just give those bands a tug so that they're pointing down more. There we go. And I'll do the same thing on the other side, putting my hook straight down through the center and just giving the bands a little tug. And that will make the arm go down a little bit. And the last thing we need to do is secure our slip knot band. And all I'm going to do is reach in through a few bands at the back of his head, grab a hold of both of my bands, even though they're broken, and I'm just going to weave them through at a couple of spots just to tuck them out of the way. And there we go. And there we go. This is our Washington Capitals player. And if you've seen my previous videos, you'll know that I have done a short tutorial on the hockey sticks. So if you would like to make a hockey stick for your character, please check out my video. And Timothy, I hope you like it. I want to see your version when you make one, so post it below, please. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you let me know what your favorite hockey team is, and I can create a player for your team as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be notified when I do post new tutorials. And I've got a lot of balls in the air for my tutorials. I know I'm kind of all over the place, but we still have to finish our Big Brother 16. I've got a whole lot of Fairly Odd Parents to do, as well as Archie characters, and lots more. So stay tuned. And again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.